Hi. You're just the cutest. Hey everyone, meet Reese. This is little Reese. She just woke up and she's hungry, so I'm gonna feed her. Oh, I am breastfeeding, so in case you guys are wondering, oh, she's tired. I really hope that this, I feel like my camera's too high. Okay, hey guys, I had to readjust my camera so that I didn't look like I was way down here. My camera was way up here. So I'm gonna be telling you guys my labor and delivery story today. I also changed my shirt because I was burping the baby and she kind of got some slobbery milk on my shoulder. So I took some screenshots today of my text messages to my mom when I went into labor. So the last video that I filmed, which was my what's in my labor and delivery bag or my hospital bag or whatever it was, I posted that on December 12th. And that's actually the day that I went into labor. So that's the day that I started getting contractions. Around 6 in the morning, I couldn't sleep anymore. So I got up, I was getting cramping and it wasn't Braxton Hicks. I could tell because it was more consistent. It would come and it'd go away. It was definitely contractions. And it literally is happening all day. And I had a doctor's appointment that day. She checked me for dilation because I told her that I was having contractions. I think my appointment was around 10. So at this point I had been having mild contractions for about 4 hours. So she checked me for dilation and I think I was 2 centimeters dilated and 80% effaced. When you're effaced, it just means like how thinned out your cervix is. I'm pretty sure you need to be 100% effaced to give birth. I went home and I just kind of dealt with the contractions. They really weren't that bad. I was telling my mom about it throughout the whole day and she was, you know, hoping that I would have the baby on the 13th, which I did. Sorry, excuse me, I only got 3 hours of sleep last night because the baby was up till like 5 in the morning and she's just been really colicky and the gripe water that I gave her did not help this time. So anyway, so yeah, so I went home and was having contractions at home, but they weren't that bad. I picked Riley up from school. That day was a Wednesday. So I picked her up early. I picked her up at 12:55 for early release. You know, we just hung out at home, had our normal daily routine. Michael came home from work. The baby's trying to poop. Michael came home from work around 4:30. We just hung out at home, nothing really any different than the norm. Later on that night, around 7-8 p.m., the contractions were kind of picking up. They were a little bit more intense but they weren't unbearable. At this point I had to squat and like move around and breathe through my contractions, but they weren't super terrible, but they were definitely getting more painful. So I was keeping track of my contractions on my phone. I'm gonna have to feed the baby again. I thought you were gonna go to sleep, but you didn't. Oh, my baby. She's so funny. So I thought, what was I saying? So my contractions were definitely getting more painful. She's hungry. Anyway, so I was keeping track of my contractions. I was writing down the time and how long they were lasting, and they were pretty consistent. Some were 8 minutes apart, some were 5 minutes apart, some were 6 minutes apart. I was texting my mom throughout and it was like 11 o'clock and she told me that I should call the hospital and see if I should go in. So she texted me at 11:47 p.m. on December 12th telling me I should call the hospital. And I said, okay. And then I called them and told them, and they asked me if this is my first baby or my second, or they asked me what number baby this is and I said second. So they said you should definitely come to the hospital because usually when you've already had a baby before, things move a lot faster. I texted my mom at 12:17 in the morning, so now it's December 13th, and my mom's birthday is on April 13th, so that's why she wanted the baby to be born on the 13th. So I texted my mom at 12:17 a.m. I told her, you know, we're on our way to the hospital now. She said okay. And then at 1 in the morning, so about 45 minutes later, the lady checked me for dilation and I was only 3 centimeters and 80% effaced. So at this point we went to the hospital when my contractions were getting really painful. I had to wake Michael up around midnight and wake Riley up so that we could go to the hospital, which is like a 15-minute drive. I was in a good amount of pain at this point. You know, I was in the bath before going to the hospital. I took a nice warm bath and it helped with the contractions. I kind of had back labor, so I had really bad back pain during my contractions, but I was, you know, coping for the most part. After waiting forever, I feel like at the hospital going through these contractions, we were in this smaller room because this hospital is really nice. It had really nice labor and delivery rooms, but the room that they put me in initially before they could admit me was not very comfortable. It was very bright, very small, very hospital-y feeling, and it had one tiny little bed that I couldn't even lay in because my contractions were so bad, and 2 uncomfortable chairs that poor Riley, she was so tired, she had to sit in one and kind of like fell asleep halfway off of it. Anyway, so I was only 3 centimeters dilated and 80% effaced. It sucked to hear that because I was already in so much pain at this point. At 1:03 in the morning, I texted my mom and I said they're keeping me for another 20 minutes at least to monitor the baby. And they had like those strappy monitors around my stomach, which I absolutely hate those because like you can't move around too much or else they'll move, and then the nurse will come in and like readjust it, and it's just really uncomfortable. At 1:19, I text my mom and I say she's gonna come back in an hour or so and check on me. So at this point, we had to be at the hospital for another hour, and I was already so uncomfortable and in so much pain, and I wanted to go home, or I wanted to be admitted and lay in one of the comfortable beds. At 2:17 in the morning, so an hour later, I texted my mom and I said going home. I still hadn't progressed in my like dilation at all. She gave me the option to stay at the hospital and just kind of hang out in the lobby and walk around, or go home. And I didn't know what to do because I didn't want to go all the way home and, you know, feel like I was starting from the beginning all over again, but I also didn't want to stay in the lobby with contractions and walk around contracting, you know, because other people might be in the lobby too, and I didn't even want to be around anyone, to be honest, when I was going through a contraction. My contractions were so close together at this point, some of them were only like a few minutes apart. I had to pee a couple times, so I'd go to the bathroom and I'd go pee, and then if I had a contraction on the toilet, I would literally just sit on the toilet and just like let it happen. I felt like that was the most comfortable for me, honestly. I didn't really feel too comfortable being around people dealing with all this pain. Normally with situations like this, I'm the kind of person that if I'm in a lot of pain, I just want to be alone. So anyway, we went home at 2:17. At 2:30, I texted my mom and I said I was still only 3 centimeters. The baby's not positioned the way she should be to move down, so I need to do movements leaning forward or lying on my side. The baby, I guess, I can't remember what position she was in, but she was not in a position where she could easily move downward. So I went back home. Michael and Riley went to sleep, and I couldn't sleep because my contractions were so bad. So at this point, it's 2:30 in the morning, and I had been awake since 6 o'clock in the morning the day before. So I've been awake for almost 24 hours. I was so tired. All I wanted to do was sleep. I tried to take another warm bath. Realistically, it was a hot bath because I love the hot baths, hot showers, and the warmer the water was, the better it felt during my contractions. And then I came out to the living room and tried to sleep on the couch because there was no way I could sleep in bed, and like, ow, crap, just hit my arm. I just felt like the couch was a lot easier because then if I had a contraction, I could get up easily and kind of go on the floor and move around or whatever. And then I actually fell asleep for what I felt like it was a long time, but then when I woke up, I realized I was only like asleep for 20 minutes. During that whole 20 minutes, I was having really bad contractions, so I'd like tense up my legs and straighten them out. I was just not relaxing at all. I moved our coffee table and I used like the whole carpet area to just kind of do circular motions with my hips, and while I was squatting down, and kind of just, I'd get on my hands and knees and kind of just breathe through the contractions. I don't really know how to explain it, but I was just moving in different ways that helped me cope with the pain. So anyway, eventually I literally felt like I was not getting a break in between contractions. I felt like I only had a minute or less than a minute in between each contraction. I probably had a little bit more time than that, but at this point I was like, I can't stay home anymore. I took a couple of hot baths during that time, during the couple hours that I was back at home, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. So at 4:30, I go into the room and I tell Michael, we need to go back to the hospital. Like I'm in so much pain. I can't be home anymore. I didn't know how dilated I was at this point, and I figured, you know, maybe I'm really dilated because this is the second baby and maybe things are moving really fast, and it felt like it was because, you know, my contractions were really bad. They were super close together. I barely had any breaks in between. So I text my mom at 4:30 and I said, having Michael drop me off at the hospital, I barely have a break between contractions and I want an epidural at this point. I'm getting back labor and it's terrible. I don't know what I'll do when I get there. Hopefully I've progressed. So the cool thing about the hospital that I went to, they had labor tubs. So you could go in the bathtub there, and they were a lot bigger and they had jets and everything in them. So I get to the hospital and at 5:35 in the morning, I text my mom and I tell her that I'm 4 centimeters dilated. They admitted me and hooked me to IVs, just to make sure I was hydrated and whatnot. This time I had Michael drop me off. Since it was past 8 p.m. or since it was past midnight, or I can't remember what time they said. Past a certain point, they have to drop you off at the ER instead of labor and delivery. And then they took me in a wheelchair to labor and delivery from the ER. And this is actually the second time they did this. The first time that we went to the hospital, they also put me in a wheelchair and took me up there. But this time I went by myself without Riley and Michael. I had them wait in the car just because I didn't know what was gonna happen and I didn't want to make them wait. Riley was asleep in the car. I didn't want to wake her up either. So when they admitted me and texted Michael and I said, you can go home for a little bit and go sleep if you want. So that's what they did. I was in a lot of pain. My water hadn't broken, but the mucus plug was coming out, blood, there was bleed. Ugh, it was gross and uncomfortable. Of course, they had the monitors around my stomach to make sure that the baby was okay. I really wanted to get in the bathtub, but they were still admitting me. It took them a long time to admit me completely, but I was already in the room, the labor and delivery room. So it was definitely a lot more comfortable than the one that I was in before, but I was not able to get in the bath for a while. Yeah, so I was 4 centimeters dilated at 5:35 in the morning. For a couple of hours at the hospital, I was dealing with the contractions. I finally was able to get into the bathtub at some point. I can't remember what time it was. I wasn't really paying attention to my phone or like texting my mom or anything like that, but I got to the bathtub. It was really nice for a while. It wasn't as warm as I would have liked it to be, but the nurses that were there, they said something like, you can adjust the water if you want. And I asked them, I was like, okay, so can I make it hotter? And they told me no. And then she felt the water and she was like, this is even too hot, a little too hot, to be honest. And it wasn't even, it did not feel that warm to me. I, would deal with my contractions in the bathtub. I'd move around and the water felt good for a while, but my back labor was so bad and I was so tired, and eventually the water got colder and I didn't really feel like messing with it and turning it on again. And like, I don't know, I just really didn't feel like doing anything. So at this point, yes, I wanted the epidural because I had been awake for over 24 hours at this point. And all I wanted to do was sleep, and I had no clue when this baby was coming. And as far as I knew, I was only 4 centimeters dilated. So yes, I wanted the epidural, and that was not my original birth plan. Michael and Riley were still home, which honestly, I wasn't too, when I pictured my birth plan in my head, Michael was there the entire time and Riley wasn't there at all. It's just because she gets really bored easily and she starts to, like, I just didn't want anyone else there except for Michael, but I was fine being by myself. Honestly, like I said, I don't like to be around people when I'm in a lot of pain or trying to cope with pain. I like to be by myself and focus, and that's all I wanted, and I was actually okay with that. So I was at the hospital for a few hours dealing with the contractions as best I could. So 7:48 in the morning, I told my mom, I said, can you call Michael? I got the epidural. I've gotten an epidural with Riley too, and this one wasn't as bad because it didn't numb me all the way. Like, it didn't numb my legs. I could still move around. My legs just felt kind of weird. It kind of felt like when your leg falls asleep and it feels like pins and needles, kind of. It kind of felt like that, but it wasn't like uncomfortable. It was weird at first, but I could still feel my legs. I could move around. It was nice. And I could still kind of feel the contractions. It wasn't like I was completely numb. So they were giving me the epidural in very small doses, and they used fentanyl, the drug that apparently can kill you. They didn't give me a lot of it, but I guess that's one of the narcotics that they can use in epidurals. I was feeling so nauseous from it and really itchy, and I actually still have a rash on my lower back and my butt from the epidural. But anyway, Riley and Michael probably got there around like 8 in the morning. It was already light outside. After I got the epidural, I was able to sleep a little bit on and off. Then my mom got there at like 10:30. My mom and my dad took Riley to Target and kind of went shopping with her and went to eat and stuff like that. Yeah, basically at this point, Michael stayed in the hospital. He watched a movie and I was just kind of sleeping. He said I looked like I was out of it, like I was really loopy. I think it was from the fentanyl, because when I had my epidural with Riley, I was not loopy, or I didn't feel like I was on on anything. I don't even know what they used in the epidural when I had Riley, but when I had her, I could not move at all. I was completely numb. So this time it was a lot different, but I did feel really loopy and really out of it. I could barely talk. I was like talking like this. I was really shaky and I was really thirsty and I could only take sips of water and have ice chips, but it was relaxing for the most part. I was able to relax and sleep, and then after a while my epidural started wearing off and they gave me like this little button that I could press. So yeah, Michael just watched a movie. I was able to sleep. Eventually my contractions started to come back, or not come back, but I started to feel them again. I was getting back labor again too. I had to, you know, continue breathing through the contractions again like I was before I got the epidural, and yeah, it wasn't fun. They gave me like this little button that I could press. They said if I really felt like I needed more medication through the epidural, that I could press it and it would dispense a smaller dose into the IV. I did use it a few times, but it's still like I said, I still felt the contractions. I still felt the back labor. I mean, I'm really glad that I didn't get completely numb and that I was still able to feel the contractions and all that, because when I had Riley, I was completely numbed. I couldn't even feel if I was pushing or not. So it was really helpful actually to feel the contractions when it was getting closer to having Reese. Eventually, after all of that, my midwife was there, so that was great. She's the only midwife in labor and delivery at this hospital, and she's amazing, and she's who I go to see for all of my OB appointments. She was actually there that day, and when I went to see her the day before for my appointment, she even said, maybe you'll go into labor tomorrow and I'll see you because I'm on call tomorrow. So I guess there were a lot of people there that day having babies. So she was there, but it was cool because when I delivered, she was there with me the entire time. So at 11:50 in the morning, I texted my mom and I said I'm 9 centimeters and they want to break my water. And Michael had gone to the house for a couple of things, and I said I was waiting for Michael to get back from the house before they break my water. They wanted to break it when he was gone, and then they were like, well, do you want to wait for him to get back just in case, you know, you push this baby out while he's gone? And I said, yeah, I'd rather just wait for him to get back. So that was at 11:50, and I was so annoyed. I was like, Michael, you need to get here. Like, I want this to be over with. He took forever. He's notorious for dragging, and he knows it too. He admits it. He gets back, I think it was 12:15 to 12:30. By the time he got back, the nurses had gone on their lunch for 30 minutes, so I had to wait another 30 minutes, and I was like, great, thank you for making me wait. Anyway, so at 1:18, they broke my water. So I waited for quite a while, and then they left for a little bit and they came to check on me a little later. I stopped texting pretty much after that. Michael texted from my phone at 2:49. He texted my mom and said, heads out, almost done. So I was pushing for 40 minutes total, 5 more minutes than I pushed with Riley. So they said that, you know, because it's been a long time since I had a baby, that, you know, things could take a little longer. So she was born at 2:52 p.m. on December 13th. I started getting contractions the day before at 6 in the morning. So I don't know if that's like the complete time of labor, because if that is, because with Riley I was induced, so it's easy to, like, you know, have a starting point for when I started labor. But this time I labored at home for a while without being induced or anything, and so I don't know, because if you want to count like starting at 6 a.m. on the 12th, then I was in labor for over 24 hours, which is insane, because with Riley, I was only in labor for like 14 hours. She was 8 pounds and 11 ounces, exactly the same weight as Riley was. My midwife and everyone was surprised at how big she was, because my stomach wasn't very big. So that just goes to show that if someone has a really big belly when they're pregnant, they might not have a big baby, and vice versa. Anyway, yeah, so it was a really good experience for me. I took a bunch of stuff to the hospital and used like none of it, so I'll make a separate video for that about like the things that I actually did use and didn't use. I did tear like I did the first time with Riley, so I did have to get some stitches. It was a minor tear though, so it wasn't bad at all, and I was at the hospital for a day after. They gave me the option to stay, but I didn't want to. I just wanted to go home and be comfortable in my own home and kind of get used to it there, because the hospital just, they moved me to the postpartum unit, and it was much different than the labor and delivery room. It wasn't as nice, I don't think, but it was cool that they had like a separate bed for Michael to sleep in. But she, it was just, of course I cried when they put her on my chest. And yeah, so Michael and I just love her so much, and Riley is just obsessed with her. So yeah, we're really happy. I didn't really get postpartum depression, but I did get like the baby blues. Like, it was just so new to me. Even though I have had a baby before, I wasn't used to having, you know, another baby plus a 6-year-old. So it was still very different and new for me. But yeah, the epidural, like I said, I feel like if I had rested more before I got the epidural, or if I had more sleep, I feel like I could have, you know, powered through it a little bit longer than I did. But, you know, when you're going on 24 hours of no sleep, it's so exhausting. And especially when you're going through all that pain, I was like a zombie going through all this. Oh, I also want to mention that when I was pushing her out, my contractions were much stronger. I could definitely feel them again because my epidural had pretty much worn off at this point. So the only thing that was numb pretty much was my whole vaginal area. Like, I couldn't feel anything down there, but I could feel my contractions and all of that. It was so painful. So whenever I felt a contraction coming, I would push, and it was a lot more relieving. And I know a lot of people don't believe in pushing and just letting your body naturally eject the baby, but I just listened to what the nurses were telling me. There was no doctor, it was just my midwife and the nurses, which I loved that. My midwife is just amazing. So yeah, it was just my midwife and the nurses who delivered the baby. I did like the overall experience, and I loved the hospital that I delivered in. The epidural didn't give me like major back pain afterwards. For like a few days I had a little bit of back pain, like nerve pain in my spine from the epidural, but it wasn't like elongated or long term or anything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else. It's kind of all just a blur now because I was so tired. Kind of just went off of like my texts that I had. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments down below, and I will get back to you. I'm gonna be filming a couple of other videos soon about baby and things like that. So maybe I'll do a Q&A as well if I get enough questions. But yeah, I'll have my Instagram username down below if you guys want to follow me on there, and my other social media platforms. That's pretty much it, I think. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.